Where I come from, we know some people cannot be saved. We must perform the ritual at Warrior Falls, as tradition dictates. And I want you to step forward on behalf of the Border Tribe.
To become queen.
There's nothing left for any one of you to prove. You're the finest Marines I've ever seen. And you deserve the truth.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Egbon Podcast, where we have candid conversations with migrants or children of migrants who are doing very well in their careers in the hopes to inspire the next generation of dreamers. Today, we are joined by the incredible, the outstanding, award-winning British-Ghanaian actor, Danny Sapani. Hello, Mr. Sapani.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. I've been such a huge fan of your work over the years, and I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. And I just wanted to have a conversation with you to get to know who you are as a human being and to learn about your journey. Before we continue with this incredible conversation, I would kindly ask you to like and subscribe. It's important for the channel to grow, so please do it.
Okay.
For those of you who don't know, Mr. Sapani has been a fantastic actor for the past, 3 decades plus. Some of you may recognize him from his work on the Black Panther, Star Wars, Killing Eve, Halo, the series. I mean, so many shows. And he's also done incredible work on stage. Shakespeare's Globe, you have Mid Theater, National Theater, King Lear, Julius Caesar, Anthony Cleopatra, and so many more. And I'm truly honored and blessed to have you here with us. And I'm pretty sure our audience will be delighted to learn from you.
Great.
So as we often start, where were you born?
I was born in London, in Hackney, in the 1970s, beginning of the 1970s. We lived by Hackney Marshes, in a high-rise flat. I think actually initially we was my parents moved into a multi-tenant house in Stamford Hill, and so that's where a lot of the sort of first migrants from Ghana ended up in this house together, and a lot of those people then became moved from that space into various other parts of North London. And when I was about 7, we moved to a house in Stoke Newington that my parents bought for £7,000.
Those days are long gone, aren't they?
Yeah. It was sort of with a basement as well. It was sort of how many floors? 1, 2, 3 floors. This house, including the basement. No, excluding the basement actually. So yeah, it was a big house. And that's where I spent most of my years till my sort of teens, and then I left home.
How was that experience growing up in an African household from Ghana?
Yeah,
and also in London.
And in London, well, you have two worlds that you have to negotiate. There's the Ghanaian household, which is full of, I guess. We had quite a few tenants, who were my uncles and aunts. So there was always a lot of adult influences to draw from and be guided by. Music came from my uncle, who was a DJ, for all the family's parties, and also being part of Ghanaian diaspora, you are part of a big family, really.
That sense of community is often there.
That sense of community is always there, and our house was also the party house. My dad set up a thing called the Obo Association, which was a community that linked people from the town of Obo, which is in Kwahu, which is in the eastern region of Ghana. And so he set this up with one of another person from Obo. I think her name's Auntie Mary, and together they set this organization up, which is still running today, 25, 30 years later. And so there was a lot of traffic in our house. And then on the flip side, you had, 1980s Stoke Newington, which was many parts of Hackney at the time, and probably still to this day, were quite deprived in many ways. And there was often a lot of sort of, I think probably right in the early days, sort of 70s, late 70s, early 80s, you would often see sort of, in different parts of London, you would see, NF scrawled on the wall and, skinheads, people glue sniffing. That was a massive thing. I remember seeing people glue sniff on the way to primary school.
If you can explain that to the audience.
Yeah, glue sniffing. I think it's, just basically people getting high on a Evo stick, I think is the glue. They put it in a bag and then you'd see them sort of inhaling this glue. And that was a very strange sort of thing to see at that age. Amongst other things, there was a front line in Sandringham Road, which was just quite near my secondary school. For the most part, I think because my household was quite strict, I had my younger brothers to look after. And later, I was sort of further educated by my older brother and sister who I met when I was 11, who had grown up in Ghana. So I think, family values were very important.
Yeah, that's...
And I think they kept us sort of somewhat safe and, on the straight and narrow.
I think that's one of the blessings of whether it's African communities, Caribbean communities, or even just other communities in general. There's that sense of community and that sense of really belonging and making sure you behave a certain way because your actions represent not just yourself, represent your family.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a blessing, even though sometimes as a kid you don't see that.
Well, yeah, at the time, I suppose what was difficult for me was that I wanted to go out and play and have the sort of freedoms that I had when I was younger. Actually, I had probably more freedom growing up by the Hackney Marshes in a high-rise block than I did much later, particularly when my younger brothers were born. It was considered my duty to look after them and to guide them, and I wanted to be a kid, and I wanted to have the freedoms that some of my peers at school had. But looking back, I'm quite grateful that I had, I was taught responsibility from an early age.
Which is very, very important. So what were the sounds that you grew up with? The sounds and the smells.
The sounds and the smells, yeah.
And the food.
Yeah, the food, yeah. Look, there was always something being cooked in our house, be it jollof rice, and we won't get into the argument around jollof, but there was, or fufu, and there was always soup being cooked. There was always music playing.
Do you remember some of the musicians?
Oh
you
yeah,
listened to?
definitely Jerry Hansen and the Ramblers, which was sort of, it's almost like ballroom music, mixed with jazz. Some of that stuff I still play today. Kafer and Pong, sort of very much 70s Ghanaian jazz music influenced by sort of American jazz, Latin music, and African music, Ghanaian music, West African music.
Right.
And then also, as we were growing up, my mum was a huge fan of Bob Marley and a lot of the jazz funk really from that period, because my uncle, as I say, used to do the DJing, so he had everything from east to west.
And you were just kind of absorbing.
We were absorbing that music. We had a turntable, and he would let us, if we were very, very careful, play, the vinyl on, and my cousins would come over, and that was where we learned, about music and our culture in many ways.
That's incredible. Did you get to travel back to Ghana?
No, not until I was in my 20s, actually. So my parents rarely, but did go back a couple of times. I think the one time that my mother went back, it must have been about 10. I think she took my younger brothers, because they were twins, I think, and there was some sort of novelty in that in our family. Even though my mother had been a twin, and she had had twins of herself before my younger brothers. So there was, but for some reason, I just never, I was the English boy. You know, I was kept somewhat sheltered from my from the real Ghanaian experience, which, you know, I had some, you know, complaints about growing up, but it made my journey when I finally went. I think I was probably about 24. Finally went to Ghana. I made it for my brother's wedding, actually. All the more special. I think maybe I was old enough to really appreciate how important this was to have my eyes open to be able to really sort of take in everything that I was seeing.
Yeah, it's I think it's very important to hold on to where we come from, because we live in countries where we all want to assimilate and we want to take on, you know, which is rightfully so, their history and their cultures and everything. But I think it's important to also remember where we come from, our own history, so we understand who we are and who we want to be.
Sure.
And the kind of either work we want to put out there or kind of legacy we want to leave behind.
Absolutely.
So I think it is important. But then what were your early influences when it comes to becoming an actor? When did you think about it, get into it? Do you remember some of your earlier?
I was very lucky in that I had an experience as a 7-year-old boy at primary school with a fantastic drama teacher, Miss Hyams, and our secretary, who would play the piano, and sometimes they would sort of devise plays based on books. We did the Phantom Toll Booth and Pinocchio, and they would, I don't know, sort of put together these pieces. I was chosen to be in one of those plays as a 7-year-old, which was unusual because usually they only chose from the older years, and it had a huge impression on me. I guess at some point they must have seen that I had some kind of aptitude for it, because it was even you know, a shock to me to be chosen.
Oh, they must have seen something
They
special.
must have seen something. And interestingly, I did a couple of plays with at primary school. But I think from the first moment that I was on stage playing the laughing policeman, which was, you know, a cameo role in the production of Pinocchio, I just knew that this meant something to me. This was being able to tell a story, to play a character, to share what was inside of me with other people. Had always had a sort of quite a vivid imagination, imaginary friends, being, or certainly feeling like an only child for 7 years. I would fill that space, you know, with all sorts of characters. Some were based on people that I knew, and some were just, you know, people that I'd read about or seen in a program or something, you know, my toys, you know, I had a whole world.
It's so
going
incredible
on.
how, you know, from having these conversations and from knowing so many performers or actors or people who do the things that we do, it's amazing all the similarities,
Right, yeah.
that all these people have,
Yeah.
which is truly fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I think those people can notice those gifts that you have, or at least those inclinations that you have, and oftentimes they come from those places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loneliness, I guess, to some extent, and combating that, or just
A playfulness as well.
a playfulness. Yeah. It was just something that really made sense to me very early on. So when I got a chance to explore that in a more, should we say, organized sphere, forum, I just took to it very easily, and would often ask for opportunities to perform.
Right.
And I think at one point they let me sing Nowhere Man by the Beatles in front of the whole school, you know, and I was never daunted by that. I always felt like it was an opportunity to share something. I didn't sort of see it as embarrassing or as the other side of it, which was maybe showing off. It didn't feel like that. I really felt like I had something to share,
To express,
to
yeah.
express.
It's, and that's the way I look at all gifts, really. I think I mean, some people tend to be quite they tend to think it's about them, or they tend to think that, you know, they're, and I mean, it's fine, whatever works for you.
Sure.
But I think it's an expression of a higher power. It's an expression of this creative spirit that we all have. And I think sharing your gift is almost sharing that power, you know?
Sure.
So I think it's a beautiful thing. So you kept performing in schools?
Yeah, I was involved in all the school plays from that point onwards, and then at the end of must have been my fourth or fifth year, Miss Hyams, the drama teacher, was leaving, and you know, a lot of the girls were crying, you know, that Miss Hyams was leaving. She was well loved. I think she moved to Wales, where her and her partner were, you know, going to move and, you know, be in another primary school or whatever. But she had a huge impact on me. And I remember her turning around to me specifically and saying, "You're very good at this. You know, you should continue." I burst into tears.
Those words to a child.
The first time.
Incredible.
Yeah. You know, the first time that something that I loved to do was being recognized and validated by another person who I had huge respect for. You know, shout out to our teachers.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I mean, and
she was the first.
And I think teachers are so undervalued and underpaid, and the impact that they have on kids is so incredible, because they can, of course, they can actually hurt sometimes, but they can actually lift up. They can see something in a kid and give you chances and support you and encourage you.
Yeah.
And that kind of confidence can hold you and can.
I mean, it certainly carried me through because, you know, all through, you know, the next, I guess, until I was 15. So from about the age of 10 to 15, I would tell people I'm going to be an actor, and they would say, "Right, sure you are," you know. And teachers who would say, you know, maybe you should consider teaching because, you know, there's not a lot of opportunities for black actors. You might not be able to make a living. A lot of, you know, doubters, even, you know, my parents were nervous about that.
That was the next question I was going to ask. How did, you know, the African parents, how did they respond to that?
You know, it was interesting because on the one hand, you know, I mean, I think my mum would have supported me whatever I chose to do. You know, she might encourage me, you know, because, you know, I was smart to some extent and was able to, you know, get good grades. You know, she would often say, you know, there are other things you can do, but I was firm and set on this idea. And my father, I think, had always had a creative bent himself, which wasn't, you know, encouraged. And so he had made sacrifices in that area. You know, if I was going to make that choice, I had to be really sure that this was what I wanted to do. I guess, although he derided the decision I'd made, he could see that I was headstrong. And I think that, interestingly, he encouraged me in ways that maybe he might not have even been aware of, in the way in which we would sit down and watch a TV program together, like The $6 Million Man or Columbo. And he showed his appreciation for the art through the way that he would engage with the material and talk to me about what was going to happen next. You know, he had a whole dramaturgical sort of bent himself, you know, and he just loved to watch these programs with me, and we kind of shared moments together that we didn't necessarily share in other parts of our life.
Yeah, those are priceless moments as well, and memories. And I think sometimes seeing them enjoy something so much that also brings you joy.
Yes.
It makes you feel like, yes, I want to do that.
Yeah, even
for other
more.
people. Yeah. And hopefully they get to see me in that same light one day.
Absolutely, one day. You know, and he reserved judgment for many years. I think it wasn't until he saw me on TV that he thought that maybe this is something I can make a living from. because prior to that, we had Lenny Henry. That was it in terms of the Black British experience of somebody who looked like you. Other than that, it was American TV,
Right.
and America seemed like
Another
world
yeah.
away. And we had Grange Hill and Anna Scher's kids, and some of those kids were at my primary school. So I don't know if that also felt like somehow that there was somebody who had been able to make it, and that somehow, even though I didn't have access to the same places that they had, that I was firm, I was set, and everything I did up until that point was about, realizing my dream in one way or another. And then when I got to secondary school, obviously I did drama. It sort of further kind of encouraged me in the way in which my drama teachers appraised my work.
Right. And
encouraged me. And I had, I was like, in our drama classes, a lot of kids were there because they, didn't want to do double maths or whatever. So, I would be the director, I took on that role because it was something I was passionate about. Somebody reminded me, I was even giving the keys to the video room, which was like a sense of responsibility because I was the drama guy, and and I suppose I realized that I was also good at impersonations as well. I would impersonate some of the teachers, much of the hilarity of my peers. And then at the end of secondary school, I heard that there was so my drama teacher had teamed up with drama teachers from other secondary schools, local to secondary schools, and set up an after-school theatre group. So we would all meet at Homerton House, and it was from there that I met my best friend, told me about a place called the Weekend Arts College. And so we would do these drama classes and we would devise work together. Kids from a girls' school down the road and two boys' schools, my boys' school and Homerton House. And so we would meet and we put on plays and we performed at the Cockpit Theatre, these devised pieces that were all about, teenage angst and what it was like growing up in Hackney. We got a chance to express our own stories and have a voice. But it was actually when I met with Steve Medlin, who then, we formed a friendship, and he told me about these auditions for this place called the Weekend Arts College, which was in Kentish Town, Interchange Studios, being run by a woman called Celia Greenwood. I went and did an audition, and this was on a Saturday and Sunday. You could do classes where you learn how to play an instrument, do all the performing arts disciplines for £1.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was, the
incredible.
birth, if you like, of, being with many people who also shared the same passion.
Thing, yeah.
And also teachers who were, people in the industry who'd given up their time to teach the next generation of performers. Invaluable,
incredible. I mean, I don't even know if I'm sure they still exist, but to have that as a kid is an incredible thing.
That was it. I mean, it was, I had no intention of becoming a dancer, but I did jazz, I did ballet, I did contemporary dance. I was part of a dance and drama company that toured Edinburgh. We performed at various festivals around the country. We're not only learning, but we're also doing.
Yeah.
And it was that sort of practical experience with people. I was there every weekend. Between then and 18, when I then went and did my A-levels in theatre studies and theatre design, and from that point, I knew I was going to leave there and audition for drama school. And each moment is like a milestone.
Yeah.
Each victory in the next step, as it were. 3 years at drama school, and then leaving and getting an agent and your first job, all
know.
of these moments.
Yes. Do you remember your audition for Central? Because you went to Central.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I auditioned for Central, RADA, Drama Centre, Guildhall, and you do the rounds. I think at the Drama Centre they said they'd give me a place in the following year because they felt like I needed some life experience because I was young. I was 18 at the time. I felt like I had enough.
Yeah. I mean, from
life
all the
experience,
things
already,
yeah.
you know. And so, you know, I sort of took that one on the chin. And RADA, I didn't get a place. Guildhall, I got a recall, and then Central gave me a place. And I think Central, I really liked the atmosphere there. Got to know some of the third year students who also they were second years at the time and who took us around the school. You know, I built some connections there that I still have today. And it was also the cheapest place to train.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, that helps. You know, I was getting an ILEA grant to go and train. Yeah, those 3 years were also a huge milestone in many ways. You know.
How was your experience at drama school?
Well, I was fortunate in that my year was, you know, I think there were previous years there were maybe one or two people of color in the year. But we were fortunate in our year, we had people from all over the country, northern actors, more than other years had, you know. And I think we had about 5 people in our year who would consider themselves, you know, from the African diaspora, which was actually extraordinary for the time. And that sort of level of support and community also, you know, carried us through the training, which is still maybe a little archaic in its scope, and so we challenged that by making sure that we got a chance to do, you know, some Wole Soyinka plays and some African American writers.
Which you get to do. You get to do one of his plays at the National, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've auditioned for. I think that was Death and the King's Horseman.
Yes.
I wasn't in that production. I felt like I should have been, but I didn't get a part. But yeah, no, great production. But it's, you know, we made sure because we wanted to not just do, you know, Chekhov, Shakespeare, and all the Western sort of, you know, giants of theatre. We wanted to also make sure that we included that into our training. And so, you know, we clubbed together and we found out, you know, about our black writers and made sure that we got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, luckily there's more and more of that now. But
at the time it was very thin on the ground in terms of the actual training. There was that, and also you have the question of, you know, when you play a role, who are you? You know, are you a black person playing this role, or are you imitating? You know, who are you when you play a role? Say you're playing, you know, I played Essendine in you know, Present Laughter, you know, by Noel Coward. You know, I grappled with this question. I suppose what I learned was that part of my own identity was as much British as it was Ghanaian. But the important thing was to serve the character, to serve the writing. And this was a huge advantage in many ways, because it means that I can play, you know, I got an opportunity to play a whole range of things before I even came to the professional world.
Yeah, because you have different pools to pull from.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I think it's normal as kids because you want to belong.
Yes.
It is actually a blessing to be able to have those pools to actually draw from, and real authentic pools.
Yeah.
So you get to have that African and Ghanaian upbringing. So you actually know how people sound, how they act, how they react, and why they do the things they do. And also you're in England, so you get to have that experience as well. Yeah. And you don't have to choose one or the other. You are both. Yeah. And you get to play both, and you get to, and it is a blessing.
A huge blessing.
Yeah.
And I remember reading Stanislavski's book on being an actor. An actor prepares. And one of the things he talked about was there are 3 types of actors, according to this book. There's the actors that imitate. There are those that use their personalities to reach a character. So the ones that imitate, maybe you might call them character actors. You know, they're very good at doing the physical stuff that still seems familiar. And then there are people who use their own personalities. So maybe a leading actor who doesn't want to sort of alienate the audience from the story, uses just their own, they are them, you know, in the role. And then he said that some of the best actors that he knows are people who are able to do both. And I considered myself one of those actors because of the experiences that I had had. I felt like I could do an impression, you know, faithfully, using my voice and my physicality, even to the point where sometimes when I'm on stage, I wouldn't even, if I looked at myself in the mirror, I would be shocked by what I saw. I sort of absorbed what I was trying to play and what I was trying to convey. And on some levels, I believed that if I believed it, that other people would believe it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the best barometer, right? I mean, there are different ways of looking at it as well, right? Some people act from the outside in and others from the inside out.
Yes.
But I think ultimately, if you are believing it, then people will go along.
Well, that's the sort of magic of it,
Yeah.
in a way. And if you are really absorbed in the role that you're playing and the story that you're telling, I don't think anybody goes to the theatre and thinks these people are becoming other people. I think we learn through the many roles that we play is that you are using your personas. We use many personas in order to overcome situations. And what an actor has is an ability to summon a particular persona to overcome the situation of the play.
Yeah.
And that is a creative process and is often likened to, you know, people who find the strength to lift a car in a dangerous situation. And so we create these life and death situations, or sometimes purely for entertainment. You know, it's not necessarily life and death, but often most plays the stakes are particularly high, and we're able to summon this spirit, this persona to overcome. And the more, you know, rounded that persona is, and the more believable it is, the more absorbed you are by it.
And what a gift
The
as
greater the
well.
experience.
What a gift to be able to give that to people, right? Because I think I look at it as such a gift. People get to come to the theater, turn on the TV, and get lost in the story, where they get to see themselves.
Yeah,
They get to learn from others without having to go through it,
of course.
and to be reminded of what it's like to be human, to think about themselves, think about where they might be going wrong, or how they're, because I think it's often hard to convince someone of something or to make them see something about themselves, but it's so much easier to do it through a play, or a screen, because suddenly they're having that conversation with themselves. So I think it's such a gift to have actors being able to do that faithfully, and to train themselves and to lose themselves in the story to do it justice. I think it's such a gift. And maybe some appreciate it, maybe some don't, but I think it's also an inherent part of what it means to be human. Because I think before all this is what we did, you know, before you could write, how do you teach people about the heroes that have fallen and the monsters and the animals you shouldn't go near? Like, you have to have stories. So it's important for us to have these songs, and to have someone who's a clown and who's gonna dance around the fire. So and it's important for us to be able to absorb it as well. So I think it's always been a part of the human experience. I think we're just finding new ways to do it, to explore it.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, there is a sort of, you know, shamanistic, you know, sacred, magical sense of being in a theatre, you know, being in a space you can talk about anything, experience something that is safe but dangerous.
Yeah, at the same time.
At the same time.
And it is very magical in the sense that we all know it's not real, but to be there and to really be lost, even as an audience member, to be like, you are losing your breath with the actor. And you all know it's not real, but you're into it and you're in it and you're lost. It's such a beautiful
It's
thing.
an amazing thing, cathartic experience, gets, used. But I think it's, particularly in these times, that is a gift, to be able to bridge the gap between, opposing feelings between people and within.
Yeah. And to have and to showcase all the different perspectives on whether we're talking about politics or talking about anything, to be able to show that on the stage and to have each point of view or each character strongly display and show what they believe and to see these ideas kind of clash. I think it's amazing. And people say all kinds of things about actors, but I think actors and playwrights and writers, they're almost like doctors of the soul. I think
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, well, that's the way I look at it. It's you can go to a doctor to fix your leg, to fix anything, but who's really going to fix your soul? And so many of us don't want to have to go to a therapist and someone to tell you, this is wrong, whatever.
Or confession.
Yeah. or don't want to hear from our loved ones or, but to be in a place where you can just see yourself.
Yeah.
Or see your dad, see your mom, or see your daughter.
Yeah.
And then your son, and think about yourself and where you are and what you're doing and how what you might be doing or not doing affecting the world around you. I think it's such a blessing. That's how I look at it. But let's continue with your story.
Well, I think that also the challenge is then, how do people tell new stories in a way, original stories, things that affect us now, but also things that have affected us in the past that we haven't maybe fully explored. This is the challenge for writers now to, I think specifically to, the way in which we are taught history in this country, for example. And how it feeds into a narrative that is false in many ways. People who aren't aware of what it means to be British, what it means to be part of this empire, and how we've ended up being here like this now. I think if people knew or are open to learning or exploring the real history, it would be very difficult to have some of the kind of prejudices and opinions that, and we wouldn't maybe be having some of the disagreements that we're having now. Specifically now.
I think that's the role of the artist, to kind of try and get people to see what's really happening. Because there's always an angle with education. There's always an angle with power. No matter how far we've come, even when it comes to democracy, there's always, because politics, right? People want to win their arguments, and people want things to go their way, and whoever's in power want their power to continue and want their way of life, their way of thinking to continue. So they're going to continue to do those things and use all the tools that they're in their toolbox to do that. I think the job of the artist has always been to try and question everything. It is hard to deny. I mean, people often use, emotions and fear to get people riled up, but it's hard to deny certain things when you see them, when you learn them, which is why I think it's so important for authentic stories to be told, to not forget about the past, because we are here today because of the past. And if we want to prepare for the future, or we want to create a certain future, I think we need to be able to fully understand where we are, why we're here, and so we can craft and think about what tomorrow could be like.
I mean, I think during the period that I was training, and certainly during my first 10 years of work, most of my work was in the theatre, But when I switched on my TV, it was clear that there was a sort of whitewashing of history and a whitewashing of, our social and cultural truth. That was something that only recently we've started to tackle. So there's a lot of work that we still have to do in order to reverse, 600 years of lies.
Well, I think it's an opportunity though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's just, where do you drop in on the story, and what's the aim, because I think there are certain mediums in which people feel that they don't want to be taught, as it were. They want to be entertained,
Yes.
and so there's that tension, but there's also a desire to tell stories about now, how things are now. It's very difficult to tell those stories accurately until we've actually mined and reappraised the past.
Yeah, I think there's always all these forces at play, right? Because even when you talk about, for instance, TV, they have all these formulas and they have all these stories that they want to tell, and they have all these. So there's always these different powers in play of what you can do, what you can't do, what story you can tell, what you can't tell. But I think we do live in a space today with things online and TV and streaming where there is room to explore and to try different things. I think we just have to continue to encourage ourselves, and hopefully the people who have the means can continue to give opportunities to people who want to challenge the status quo
And create those opportunities for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Which is, that's something that we're still trying to do. Not just here, but in certainly in Ghana.
I would say in general we haven't told our stories.
We still got some way to go.
And there's so many stories out there to be told, from kings and queens and princes and heroes and villains and all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. There's so much there. Mythology and
philosophy of our, which growing up you felt like that Africa has no history. Africa has no culture. Everything is taught. And if you were to drop in on Ghana in the 50s, or even up until current times, you'd see a lot of very people denying their history and denying their culture. I had one aunt who was who didn't follow the church. And was very much into the fetish priests, and she could tell you things about, that seemed fantastical, about the powers that these individuals had. And essentially they were herbalists, And now a lot of that stuff is sort of now being respected and shared. You go to the body shop now, you see shea butter. And we were told that we shouldn't use shea butter because it was, all of these things suddenly come back, and we start to realize what we have and what we had value.
And it just, first of all, it makes you realize the importance of messaging. How, depending on who's telling the story, you can make something be worth nothing or worth a whole lot more. And the power of marketing. The power. I mean, let's talk about shea butter. If you have shea butter, there's a lot of things you don't need.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things you don't need.
Sort of source.
And it's very simple as well. But if you're trying to make a lot of money, and if you're trying to market things, then you need lotion for your feet, you need lotion for your hands and for your body, and you need so many different things. So this one thing is not enough. We need to add a bit of scent to it. We need to add this. We need to
it needs to be marketed
exactly a certain way. But again, and the same thing could be said of not just a product, but even a history. Right. If we want to sell you this education, then we're not going to tell you that your education is valuable. You have to learn this history and how we do things here, and how we stand here, how we talk here, and that's the way it should be done.
Yeah.
So now you're properly educated.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you do it that way, that is not.
That's not.
That's
yeah.
It's so funny. I have a friend who told me. I mean, he said that he mentioned it's true. He said it's so funny how in a lot of not just African communities, Indian communities, just so many parts of the world, people have animals around, and at some point in time in certain parts of the world, it's looked upon as like, why do you have all these animals around? Like it's looked like it's a bad thing. Yeah. And nowadays we need all these pets that make us feel better. So it's such an interesting thing, but it's people. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
So let's continue with your story. So you went to Central for 3 years. You trained. You felt like you've learned a lot.
Yeah.
When did your first professional experience come about after Central? Do you remember?
It was actually while I was still at Central. So it was in my final year. I got I found an agent because they'd come to see a show that I was in. I can't remember which one. I met Marina Martin, who became my first agent. She got me a job. I think before I met her, actually, she'd put me up for a job, which was to play somebody on the bill. And so I begged the school, and they allowed me to go off and do this job. So I was gainfully employed before I left drama school, which was a huge milestone,
Of course,
and a sense that I was going to be okay.
Yeah, validation as well. It's
Yeah.
important for.
And so I played this character, and then I think after drama school, I then went off to the Bayer Theatre in St Andrews to play Othello. And Shakespeare had always been a huge part of my training, even before I'd come to drama school, because I did English literature at secondary school. And we had a fantastic, it was an after school club, so it was something that I chose to do. And our teacher was a young guy. I met some of my teachers, actually. They've been to see shows that I've been in. And I'm just amazed at how young they were when they were teaching us. They were all in their sort of early 20s, late 20s, just left uni, And he got us to read Romeo and Juliet, but out loud. And I had, my dad used to have this, 2 books in his private drawer. One was a Bible, and the other one was the complete works of Shakespeare.
What else do you need?
What else do you need, right? And I remember sort of, trying to make out, these 2 books, great stories.
Great stories.
Great stories.
You don't need anything else to understand human, like nature. You
Nature,
have the Bible,
exactly.
and then you have Shakespeare.
Yeah, Shakespeare. And so I remember reading, Romeo and Juliet, trying to make it out, and some bits made sense, some bits didn't. All in my head, and then actually reading it in a English literature class, reading poetry out loud, reading, Shakespeare and other plays out loud, and just kind of relating to these characters in a way that made it personal. I can't tell you what that did. I read the story of Romeo, and I was like, this is me. I'm experiencing this right now. It was a great thing to give to 15-year-old boys in an all-boys school. And they were all there because they wanted to do English literature. There was no, coercion involved. That experience, fed me through, drama school. A lot of people found it difficult to understand the meter and the iambic pentameter. I felt like I had sort of absorbed it because I had already, there were still things, even when I came to do King Lear recently, there were still parts of the text that I had to sort of really study to try and understand. It's like a puzzle that you need to crack. It goes back to that thing that I was saying. If I believe it, if I understand it, I can make it clear to others. And I can make it possible for other people to know that this is for us.
Yeah.
This isn't for editors or academics. Shakespeare was an actor, and he wrote in a way that we still speak today. We still use iambs in our speech. and we still use the pentameter in particularly in English. But it's also plays that have been translated into other languages, and so there's something fundamental, a fundamental understanding of the human condition.
Clearly,
That is which is why telling the story of King Lear recently understood better the journey of my father's life, you know, or anybody's life, you know, he goes from, you know, ego to grace. And that was the journey of many people's lives. You know, we start off thinking we know it all, and then realizing that we know nothing, and we are, and to dust we return, you know. And it's you also realize reading something like King Lear or many of these plays, that it links to many of the folk stories and religious stories of all religions. You know, the Upanishads and you know, the early books from Hinduism and Buddhism sort of explored. You could explore those books when you do these plays and find some connection, as I did. And I suppose growing up, I realized that plays and stories were an opportunity to share something that was fundamental to what it meant to be a human being. But I suppose one of my big desires was to, you know, replicate the Muhammad Ali poem. I hope it's his poem, but I think it's the shortest poem in the world, apparently. But it's me, we. That my experiences as a black boy growing up in, you know, in Hackney with Ghanaian parents is not that different to somebody growing up in Michigan in 1940s America. You know, that we all feel the same things, we all bleed the same way, and you know, and that we should learn to empathize with each other, because that was the only thing that, you know, that's the thing that has kept us going, you know, as a species.
I mean, at our core, we're the same. We're the same. I mean, everything else is a function of evolution or whatever you want to be. But this is where we are today. And I think from studying all these plays, and whether it's classical plays or plays from other parts of the world, either reading different religious books, we're all the same. We all want the same things. We, for our families, for ourselves. It may look a little different, you know, the seasoning may be a little different, but at its core, it's the same. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Shakespeare as well. You truly, you see that he had a clear understanding of people, what moves people, and what drives people, and also what changes people. And that's why I love this play so much. What would you say that you learned the most from King Lear, from doing the show, from playing character?
Well, you know, all of the plays have different, as I say, puzzles that you need to kind of overcome. And I suppose with King Lear, the things that happen in between scenes is just as important, and sometimes more important than what happens actually in the scenes. They're just a reflection of what has just passed. And the timescale sometimes is 2 weeks or 3 months in between. But this story is happening in front of you, and you have to somehow create those links for the audience. But I suppose, what did I learn from playing King Lear? That getting old is tough. Giving up some sense of power. Our identity is constantly changing and shifting according to the times, you know.
I think it might be Shakespeare, but I think someone smart and wise said time undoes even the mightiest of creatures. And that's the one thing that none of us can ever run away from. Is time. We are time. You know, it is us, and it is somehow separate from us at the same time. You know, we age, you know, and things change around us, and you know, that sense of being the most important thing to becoming irrelevant is a tough pill to swallow.
I think certain cultures have a better handle on this than we do, maybe. The
I would say,
capitalist West.
I would say so, because I think that in certain cultures you're taught that you're not the most important thing. It's not all about you because the community is being served.
Yeah.
Whether it's your honoring your parent or looking after your siblings or knowing that it's not just about you.
Yeah.
And I think in those cultures they have an easier time dealing with
Aging.
Aging. Yeah. Even the way in which they take care of their elders in those communities is very different.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, they just put you in the
Yeah.
home somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's and that the stories that older generation have cease to be relevant in a capitalist individualist society like ours, because it's not wisdom, it's senility. There is so much to be mined from people who have experienced life. There is so much to be gained from that knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think there are certain cultures where those that are at that stage or who have passed, their stories are still relevant.
Yeah.
And I think that's relevance. I think is very, very
Yeah, and I think
crucial.
there's so much to
those
be said about
communities
that. I would say, because even in the way some cultures name people,
Yeah.
right? You have to be named in some culture after your grandparents,
Yeah.
so that we never forget who your grandparent
Exactly.
was. So that's a way of kind of remembering
Yeah.
and understanding that you're not alone.
Yes.
And you're part of something that
Yes.
is bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas when you live in a very individualistic society,
Yeah.
and it's done on purpose, I think.
Yeah.
It's just not done for your benefit.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's all about trying to get you to buy. So to get you
Yes.
to buy stuff, I have to make you feel like you're the most important thing.
Yes.
So you have to get the new thing. You have to get
Yeah.
it now. And
Yeah.
you only have to, you're the only person that matters. Just you and your happiness right
Yeah.
now. Just you.
Right. Yes.
But it benefits you in the moment and
Yeah.
it feels good
Mm.
because we all like to feel special.
Mm.
But ultimately you realize as you get older and as you age, this human experience is about, it's not about the individual, it's about what we share. It's about who you've impacted, who impacted you. And you eventually realize that you can't really do anything on your own.
Yeah.
You need other people.
Yeah.
You can live in the biggest house, but if it's an empty house, then what's really the point of it?
Absolutely.
But I think these are questions that as a society we have to grapple with, especially in the West, as people are living longer, people are having less children.
Yeah.
We just have to start thinking about that. What does that look like in 30, 40 years when everyone is aging now and they're not having kids? And it's very interesting. I have room for more stories, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, I hear that although there was a huge backlash to this happening, in Japan they have an aging population and not many people are having children. They, in those periods in history in the past, many times people have imported a new workforce from other places in the world, and that was the plan in Japan. But it was, there was a huge backlash against it, because it also means dilution to some extent. When cultures come together, something new happens, and that if you're not prepared for that, as it seems we are not prepared for that in this country, for example, hence the huge backlash to immigration in this particular time. I just don't think you create a set of circumstances where a group are privileged and so you underprivilege another group. It's just part of the trade-off in some shape, way or form. So, and a dilution of culture. But what you create is a new thing. And often that new thing is more interesting than the two individual cultures on their own.
It's all about marketing, I think.
Yeah.
It's how you spin the story.
Sure.
And how you tell it to people and how you make them feel about it.
Sure.
So for instance, in the case of Japan, and I'm sure they're having these conversations,
Sure.
but is the purity of Japan keeping it one thing more important than the survival of Japan? Right. So that's the question you have to
What's
ask
the
yourself.
brand?
Yeah.
What's the brand?
And I think for a long time, and I'm sure it's gonna change as still, but for a long time, that's what America did so well.
Yeah.
It was very good at assimilating people.
Yes.
Right. Everyone comes from a different part of the world, but we all want to be American.
Yeah.
You know, and quickly within a generation, even people kind of forget like where they come from.
Yeah.
Right? They just want to be American because the whole country was built on this idea. So there, as long as those ideologies are kept, then the country felt like it was still the country. Now, of course, with everything, there's always going to be some backlash, or sometimes when you move too far to one side, then sometimes you have to be brought back, and maybe that's what we're experiencing right now.
Sure.
But yeah, time is flying, so let's continue about your journey.
Yeah,
So
okay,
so
okay.
you went to you played Othello,
Yeah.
which is incredible.
My first job. I was 24. I was way too young to play it, but it was an experience.
How was that for you though?
Yeah, I think, obviously I tried to make it as close to me as possible. So, in my version, he was me. He was my age, and there are so many cues for an actor in Shakespeare's work that make it possible for anybody to play those roles. If you follow the cues. Love the experience. I loved the experience of being in St Andrews in Scotland, at the Buyer Theatre, beautiful space. I was away from home for the first, time, out of London, experiencing, a different culture in Scotland, and that was interesting. Working with other actors from other parts of the country,
That is incredible though. Playing Othello as your first job.
Yeah.
That the title role.
Yeah.
The heavy role as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot about my own identity, about, what would I say? Maybe even some of the issues with that play. The history of the Moor and the history, the environment of that play, and its in its time, and what its function was, and then trying to bring my own humanity to that role, dealing with those issues that come up in the play. I thought that it was a challenge. Well, even down to the fact that the guy playing Iago was much older than me, and he sort of had a lot of experience as an actor and with Shakespeare, but was a bit of a maverick sort of guy, really. And he would use the play to kind of make sort of little gestures towards the audience. So he was breaking that wall, as it were. And so I realized that I had a job to do to wrestle the play back. I didn't have the confidence to say, I don't think you should be doing that. I don't think you're telling the story of Othello. You're telling the story of you, Cliff, in this role. But it is a battle. There's a lot that is part that theatrical community. It's an incredible space. You have actors who come from different ages, different cultures, and we all try to tell one story in one space in time. With an audience, although the end result is often made up of many different sort of battles that have happened in rehearsal and even on stage. There's so much. It's a very rich.
Yeah, it is. It is very rich, and I think the audience gets to experience that, even though they don't get to be in that space.
The whole thing, and that taught me an awful lot about what it meant to stand up for oneself and to be faithful to the story and to respect the other actors. Yeah.
That's incredible. And you've gone on to play so many incredible characters and soldiers and kings and all that.
Bears.
Yeah. and you've also done incredible work on screen, from Star Wars to Black Panther to all of that. What was one of the most challenging roles that you had to take on for yourself?
The theatre is always a place of home and learning. Increasingly being on screen and being on a set has become, a new home for me. And I bring all of the things that I have learned from the stage to that space. I insist on rehearsing a scene before we shoot it, and understanding the parameters of our performance. Somebody once explained to me that the wide shot is like a theater shot, and then the mid shot is where, it's the space between two people. And then the close up is what's inside your head.
Yeah.
And just even understanding that, because if I stand on stage, if I'm upstage left or downstage right, I know what the scope of my performance needs to be. If I'm going to reach the back of the audience, the theater. So there's something that was really important to sort of get a handle on, and this is what I learned doing one of my first TV roles was in a show called Penny Dreadful. And I played a character who didn't really speak that much. When he spoke, it was pithy and, deep. But often he would stand at the back of the room and this whole scene would be going on in front of him. And at times I got obviously very bored and felt like I was not being valued.
Right.
My way of dealing with this was I would ask to watch playback. And so after some of the scenes, I would go and watch the monitor and see how my character's story was coming across through my stillness, through my listening. Sometimes it would be a single shot on me listening. I noticed how the smallest movements spoke so loudly. And it gave me a sense of what my physical life was like on screen before I'd even uttered any words. It's called moving pictures for a reason. The dialogue, the words are not as important as what you visually see. And I think that's possibly why so much of our viewing now is through the screen, because it's easy to access. Once that stuff is recorded, it's there for all time. And there's something about us watching something. We are very adept at reading language through people's bodies. I think in many ways.
80% of communication is
actually physical.
So,
And so I think there's, we love words, particularly in this country. If you get pissed off, you write a letter. But it's actually so much of our communication, as you say, is physical. And so it was really powerful for me to have that experience to actually see what I was communicating on screen as a physical being. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah. I also think that one of the things that happens to us as humans, as I think by the time you're like 10 or 14 or something, even 10, I would say, you know that people lie, but bodies don't lie. It takes a very skilled person to be able to lie to you with their bodies.
Yeah.
I think we subconsciously pick up on that.
Yeah.
Because someone can sound good and say the right things.
Yeah.
But when they're nervous, you can tell.
Yep.
When they're blushing, you can tell.
Yep.
When they don't like what you're saying, you can tell. When
if
they're
they're
uncomfortable.
in love,
yeah.
if they hate, if they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Where you place your eyes, where you look, to get your imagination from. It's all of these things are really specific, which you can't fake.
Exactly. That's the thing. So
you have to feel in order to express that.
Yeah. And I think that's what draws us to really good performances, because what they're doing matches what they're feeling and also matches the story.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wow, I believe that.
Yeah.
Or I don't believe what they're saying, but I believe what they're doing, and it matches because she's saying I love you, but she doesn't love you.
Yes, exactly.
And it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've done huge productions like the Black Panther or Star Wars. What is it like to work on those productions and
scale of things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was it like to be on the Black Panther? I'm sure people would want to know.
I mean, it was a sort of dream come true in many ways, I'm the kind of guy who used to go and watch movies and then come out feeling like the characters in the film, you know, and Hollywood, you know, American movies seemed like another world away. I just felt like a 10-year-old boy again when I was on that set, you know, with people like Angela Bassett and Forrest Whitaker, Chadwick Boseman, late great Chadwick, and Michael B. Jordan. Just people that I had watched and sort of dreamt about being in the same space with them, and there I was, you know. And also in this groundbreaking historical making movie was, at times an overwhelming experience. But we were very fortunate in our director, who was a real collaborator, you know, almost, you know, a theater guy in the way that he dealt with film.
That's a blessing when you have that, when you have someone who is there to serve the story and feels like they are collaborating with you as opposed to telling you. And sometimes you need a bit of both, you know? But to really feel like you're part of something is really invaluable. I think those are the best experiences in general as an actor. But I think the audience can also feel it sometimes, you know, when they feel like these people are being taken care of. They feel like this is like a group.
Everybody, Ryan would often ask, you know, what do you think? How do we, should, you know, and the script was changing all the time. In fact, most of the really good films that I've been in where I've really enjoyed the experience are closer to theatre or a devised piece in some of the TV programs that I've been in, where it's, you know, a lot of the decisions are made before you get there. You know, but on stage and in film, you know, that collaboration, how do we make this make sense, or how do we make this work? You're making those decisions often just before you shoot. And sometimes, you know, immediately after shooting something, you change it again. And that ability to adapt and improvise is a muscle, a skill that I practiced on stage. And so to bring that to the screen and to feel confident that I could do that, and that my voice was valued and respected because I'm playing the character, you know, that was great for me, you know, wonderful.
A couple more questions. What advice would you give a young Danny Sapani?
Keep going. At some point, you are going to, you know, be able to fulfill all of your aims as an adult through this industry, your responsibilities as a man, as an individual, as a member of society, that you have value that will carry you through, you know, that will serve you and others. And that not a waste of time. That we are, that these dreams, these flights of fancy, that there is more to the present moment than is often on show. Individual souls, but collective, as part of a species, we are moving through time, constantly part of the past, the present, and the future, and that can be fully expressed and fully understood on some levels, not just through science but through art.
And I think art definitely has its place, always had and always will have its place, even though this is the first thing they cut. But it is necessary for our souls. Not just for entertainment, but for education. For change.
Yes.
Because I think it can change someone's spirit, someone's mind. You can change someone's point of view on something through a good story.
When we watch something collectively, those on stage and those in the audience, heartbeat becomes regulated. I think that's an extraordinary. Sometimes you have the honor of being responsible for the pace at which a whole room of people beat.
That's deep. That's
That's
beautiful.
deep, right?
That's deep.
That's
and
an
beautiful,
experience thing, you know, that,
Yeah.
that it's your responsibility to carry them through the story.
And that stays with people.
Yeah.
That stays with them. Whenever they see you, they'll be reminded of how they felt in that moment.
Yeah.
When they watched that movie, when they were in that space. I think a lot of the things that you don't realize as an actor when you do the things you're doing is how you're actually impacting people. Because I'm sure there have been many times where you've reminded someone of their father.
Yeah.
Or their husband.
Yeah.
Or their grandfather, or whatever the case may be. And that is something that is invaluable. Is there a role that you still want to play? Or is there a role or world you want to experience? Just something that you really would love to see happen?
I would love to see, you know, in the time-honored fashions of the epics of the 60s and 50s, you know, the Antony and Cleopatra or the Ben-Hur, I would love to see a similar treatment of the world of Aksum and Kemet and Nubia. I would love to see that treatment of those stories, or Great Zimbabwe, or the ancient, you know, African stories of that time, you know, or, you know, in the same way that, you know, we have films like Hero, you know, which is about sort of China and the samurai, or Japanese the stories, the stories of the past, and just to kind of visualize that world. I would love to see that.
I think, and
I have so many stories that I have in my head from the past, you know, but I feel like we have to go back. There's a wonderful story of a woman called Armani Reynolds, who was a Kandaki queen, one-eyed Kandaki queen, who held Augustus Caesar to a truce. She preserved Nubian history and culture for the next 300 years, through her ability to stand up to the Romans. We don't know much about her, but we know she existed through the writings of Plutarch, and also through the Meroitic script that we've been unable to decipher. It's a bit like hieroglyphics, but it's slightly different. We still haven't been able to decipher this language to know from their own perspective of what it meant or who they were. And so, because it's no longer used, this language, you know, even in Sudan, which is actually the area in which, you know, historically this civilization existed. So I would love to be able to see that world and understand who they were.
I think that's the future of where things should be going. I think they will be going there because there's so much that hasn't been explored. I mean, imagine an African Game of Thrones. 7 seasons. You can, there are kingdoms. Invasions. Myths.
How did these people relate?
Oh my goodness.
The Sahara is not a desert yet. It's lush.
There's so much out there. And I think the first people to tap into it are gonna make
a lot of
whole lot of money.
Yes.
So
it's incredible stories to be told. Maybe we should do that. Maybe you know, we have so many tools at our disposal now. You know, AI and all of that. These things, we need to make them work for us rather than against us.
I'm trying to do my own thing.
Same.
But I'm sure you know. But I think that's where we need to go, and I think that's what needs to be explored. And I think we get to tell our own stories.
That's it. From our own perspective. You know, the story of Kwame Nkrumah. You know, he's not this kind of guy who, you know, freed Ghana and then became a dictator and then disappeared from history. He, you know, from his perspective, what was it, you know, that he was trying to achieve? Who was he? You know, not told through the sort of British media. You know,
and also the role of our women. You know, I think there's so much. Just so much hasn't been told about the importance of how they held us together,
shape
how they've kept us, even though it's, it's
Society,
oftentimes,
yeah.
it's the men out there, but like the women have played such an incredible
Absolutely.
role, and to honor that as well.
Yeah.
To see, who are the women behind those kings,
Yes. Yeah.
who did those kings fight for?
And the
And
female
die for, yeah.
queens,
Yeah,
the
as well.
Yara Santois of the
Yeah.
world,
Oh, there's
telling-
there were
so many,
they refused.
wonderful
Yeah,
characters,
you are not
you
going
know.
to colonize us.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Some of them did incredible work.
Incredible work. And even though in the end, as they say, this history is told by the victors.
Mhm.
So by that token, we must understand that they did not win.
Yeah.
But what is winning
Mm-hmm.
and what is losing?
Yeah.
And I think we are, by our ability to survive in this culture, survive with this history, suggests that we are much stronger than the sum of our parts. We have and continue to survive. We are constantly winning,
Yeah.
because every metric should tell us that we don't survive in this culture.
Yeah. And we're still here. I think.
Exactly.
So it's up to us to, not just us, but the simple fact that we're still here
Yeah.
means that we're not dead.
Yeah.
All these people's lives and blood kind of run through us.
Mm-hmm.
So just our very own existence is proof of their survival. And I think we just need to remind ourselves of who we are and where we come from.
Absolutely.
And to honor the little kids growing up, that you don't have to lose yourself.
No.
You don't have to deny who you are, where you come
Exactly.
from. And you don't have to choose one or the other.
Right.
Again, it's like a sauce. You can
Yep.
have
From
tomatoes in
all.
there, yeah, and onions, and you can
Yeah.
have it with rice, or you
Yeah,
can have it with fufu.
chips.
You can have it however you want. You don't
Yeah.
have to choose one or the other. I think
Yeah.
the problem arises when you say it only has to be this.
Yeah.
And everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or denying your own existence. I think it.
Either
there's so much
willfully
more.
or unwillfully.
Yeah.
Willfully,
Yeah. Oh, even I think the worst one is subconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the smallest things from.
Yeah.
Like our names.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's so much to discuss, and
There's
time
so
actually
much.
just flew by.
Yeah.
So
It's been a
thank you
real
so
pleasure.
much, Mr. Sapani.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much
coming.
for
I feel like
having
there's so much more we could have talked about.
Yeah.
But I think we definitely delved into the deeper things.
Yes.
So that was wonderful. So thank you so much
Thank
for coming.
you.
I truly
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And I look forward to just continue to see what you do on screen, on stage, and we get to see you play that king soon.
Yeah.
The African king.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love
Thank
that.
you.